are and however you are listening, thank you for being back with us on Winning the Moment podcast. I've got a good friend here with me today, Lance Brown, and Lance is the creator of the Influence Formula and popular Influence Spectrum quiz. As a professional speaker, he has shared his groundbreaking formula with audiences across the country. His background includes time as a public fundraiser, dynamic sales trainer, highly rated professor, and published author. He has a bachelor's degree in marketing and a master's degree in executive leadership. Lance is married and has 6 kids. They are all boys except for 5 of them. In his spare time, he enjoys competing in Mr. Clean lookalike competitions. Lance, thank you so much for being here.
So excited to be on here, Cody. This is fun.
It's cool because you are a professional speaker, so you're so prepared. I've never had a bio before. Usually I have to make it up when the podcast is over, so that was nice to have. And everything that you've done has been so impressive because even when I spoke, so Lance and I know each other from Utah Tech University, and I got to speak at your staff and faculty thing, and you asked for like a 1-pager of my talk, and I was like, well, I don't know what that looks like. And you sent me yours, and I was able to just use that as a guidepost. So it's been really fun to share this space with you.
Yeah, some people just naturally, you just want to hear them speak. And then there's people like me that are that have to be super professional and easy to work with. Just it's got to be a piece of cake. I don't have a name. I've never climbed Everest. I've never won an Olympic gold medal. And so, so I just try to be easy to work with. So anyway, that's where that came from. And man, when you came and spoke on stage, you just did an incredible job. We got so much good feedback. And so the things you're doing, your book's incredible. Your podcast is awesome. So yeah, it's just really an honor to be hanging with you today, man.
Well, I love being here with you. And it's been so fun to watch the growth of what is now Utah Tech University, going from Dixie State and getting more involved and going to the games. And I've just enjoyed it so much. And of course, all the fundraisers you guys put on, like the Utah Dixie Classic. What is it now? Utah Classic?
It's the Utah Tech Classic, and it's only 2.5 weeks away.
I know.
Man, so we got some work to do.
It's the best golf tournament I've ever participated in. I look forward to it every single year.
Yeah, we always appreciate your support. And you going to win it this year? That's what I want.
No, we don't ever win. The teams are too good.
You need to cheat better, man.
I know. Either they're too good or they're too good at cheating. I don't know which one it is, but I think last year after Friday, we were in it. We were only like 3 strokes off the lead. So we were kind of in it a little bit. And then Saturday, we probably lost by 20.
The wheels came off.
Yeah, we just didn't have it. Those putts didn't drop. So I'd love to know a little bit more about your backstory. I can't wait to hear about the Influence Formula, but a little bit of background, and you can start wherever you want. And then I really want to get into your, what you share and preach as a speaker.
Yeah, so much of what I've learned, Cody, came from the School of Hard Knocks, and I mean that quite literally. As a door-to-door salesman for a 12-year period.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Does that include the mission?
That doesn't. So the mission
14 years of door knocking.
Yeah.
All right.
So I figure I've knocked on probably about 100,000 doors, and I've got the calluses to prove it.
That's amazing.
And it wasn't just 100,000 doors. I mean, it was 100,000 people with unique backgrounds and perspectives and insight. I think it's Niels Bohr who said an expert is just somebody that fails multiple times in a particular field or discipline. And man, if you've ever tried door-to-door sales, it's like emotional whack-a-mole. And so much of what I learned didn't really come from the safety of my college classrooms. It came while I was out, I got a bachelor's degree in marketing and a master's degree in executive leadership.
Where'd you get that
at? Southern Utah University.
Okay. And
then my master's degree is from Liberty University.
Okay.
But I like to say, while I was paying for those degrees, I got a PhD in people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so naturally, as my expertise grew, I got into leadership and management and training. And I've trained about 600 salespeople. I've recruited, trained, and managed 600 salespeople. And I was always just fascinated by, they had the same product they were selling.
Yeah.
Same sales script. We made them memorize it verbatim.
Yeah.
A lot of them had the same exact training, same manager, same area, and yet their results
same uniform
varied significantly. Yeah, same uniform. And so I was just always intrigued. I became a student of influence early, and then I've since, like mentioned, moved into a more academic setting. So yeah, I'm a fundraiser now. I try to talk people out of hundreds of thousands of dollars in support of just these awesome and just noble causes. And then I also get in the classroom a little bit. I was a part-time business instructor for a while. And, as I try to just culminate, everything that I've learned into just a simple and easy to understand framework. That's where this influence formula came from. And yeah, I've since been sharing that on stages across the country and then incredible platforms, podcasts like yours.
So what were you selling when you're doing door to door?
So I did 1 year of pest control.
Okay.
And then I got called to serve a mission for my church. So I was selling religion.
So you did pest control before you went on a mission?
I did.
Wow, that's not many people knock before they've
Yeah.
knocked for the church.
Yeah, so I went from the small town of Kanab, Utah, a little one stoplight town,
Yeah.
to just outside of San Francisco. I wish you could have seen me on my first day. I'm like, I don't think
Oh, yeah,
I'm
culture
in
shock.
Kansas anymore. And so that opened my eyes. That was helpful. And I think I was successful on a church mission where a lot of people aren't, just because it's a grind, man. I mean, a lot of rejection because I just kind of dipped my toe already.
And when you say you were successful, what does that mean for you on the mission? Like you baptized a lot of people or?
That's part of it, but I found a lot of fulfillment in the relationships that I developed with people that I was seeking to teach, and but also my fellow mission companions. But ultimately, I'll never forget. If you grow up in my church. And I used to see missionaries go out, and these were just gawky teenagers, immature, and I'd watch them come back, and they were young men. I mean,
sure.
They just had kind of a glow to them, and so I just had that hunger to see that transformation in my own life. And so I'd always prepared and wanted to do that. I went to Miami, Florida. And I'll never forget, it just abruptly just ended. 2 years was kind of what they asked of us. And I remember driving home from West Palm Beach to the mission home where I'd fly out the next day back to southern Utah. And it was a rainy day, and my driver was deaf. And so I knew in my whole mission, we could only communicate through, I don't know, sign language. And,
But just hand signals?
Yeah, but he could kind of read lips.
Yeah.
But man, it just hit me as I realized how much I grew to love those people.
Yeah.
And that experience. And I just remember tearing up and I'm not an emotional guy, but I was just sobbing. I was staring at it. And I felt like an idiot because this guy's looking at me. We can't even talk through stuff.
Yeah, right.
He's just sitting there watching me like bawling like a baby. And that experience to me was meaningful. And it became a foundation for a lot of the things that have brought me joy and happiness in my life. So I felt like I became that matured version of Lance.
Yeah, you grew up.
Yeah, I just learned a ton in that capacity. So that was success to me.
So you did pest control, went on the mission, then would you come back and sell?
So it's a product called Living Scriptures, and there was a former...
So just kept selling religion.
Pretty much. Yeah, this time I just got paid. Instead of through blessings,
right.
It was in financial...
blessings.
Blessings. And so... there was an animator at Disney. His name is Richard Rich, great man, and he directed Fox and the Hound, Winnie the Pooh, Pete's Dragon. A guy named Jared Brown, no relation to me, approached him about animating scriptures stories. And he was incredibly busy at the time and kind of disregarded at first because he just knew there wouldn't be...
Would that be like VeggieTales-esque?
Kind of.
Similar to that
It was
concept?
but it's Disney caliber animation. I mean, we're talking professional score, high quality animation, casting, acting. I mean, that's what this guy did. And so, so you're doing a highly expensive Disney caliber animated product, but in a teeny niche market. I mean, we're talking members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So I was going to ask, those only LDS content.
Originally, that's what it started.
Got it.
The very first one was 1982, a product called Nephi and the Brass Plates, and it cost them a small fortune, and they weren't sure if they were ever going to see their money back.
Yeah.
But there was quite a demand for that high level, market penetration for that specific market because it was, again, so high caliber and such a niche thing. Anyway, they went on to animate 2 sets in the New Testament, Old Testament, a series called Hero Classics. We're talking George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, and ultimately a library of 100 videos. And so we'd hit up a family and say, you want to get a DVD and a coloring book a month? Cost them $30. We'd make $250. And so a college student, I went out, again, this kid from Kanab. I mean, I was either flipping burgers or I was hawking, Jesus stories, animated Jesus stories. And
Where were you flipping burgers at?
that would have been Kanab. That would have been back home.
Did you work at that? What's that really good burger
the
place?
Junction, you know it, baby. Yeah, it's a good place to stop on your way to Lake Powell.
Yep.
One of my favorite places in the world. But yeah, so I made $30,000 that first summer. I thought,
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going to do it, man. And so I got okay at selling it, but I got better at selling people on selling it. So my main thing for a decade was obviously selling it, but recruiting people to go do it.
Well, so you built a team.
Teams.
So did you do that for a decade then with that organization?
I did 4 summers. I did North Carolina, Florida, went back to my mission. I did Seattle, Dallas, one other I'm missing. And then I got put as the BYU regional manager. So moved up to Provo. And I no longer had to go take teams out. I just traveled all over the country training sales guys. And then ultimately, before coming down here to Utah Tech, I was the national sales director. So I oversaw the entire college program.
Wow, that's amazing. And was your wife with you when you were going out and traveling all the time?
She was. Yep. Well, my first few summers were single, and then she went with me the last few, and
that's awesome.
And so we had that experience. She also was kind of Utah born and raised, and hadn't had a lot of experience outside.
Is she from Kanab?
She's not, and she would hate to hear you even suggest the mere mention. So she grew up in Sandy, a suburb of Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, when you say you were at BYU, was that with university, or was that?
No, I was just with Living Scriptures, working out of my home, but I was primarily recruiting out of Provo. A lot of professional door knockers there.
Yes, yeah, Utah breeds them.
Yeah.
So then how did you go from there to Utah Tech University?
I did.
How did you get into that? It's such a different, because that's a completely different role, right?
Completely different. And that was all I knew until, 8 years ago when I started the university. So a guy I worked with, he's actually the chief marketing officer at the university. He's a VP, Jordan Sharp.
Okay.
Him and I worked together for 9 years at Living Scriptures. He was one that recruited me into that.
Oh, okay.
And then when he left to come work at the university, that's when I assumed his role. A few years later, he called me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you're looking. I'm so much happier here. There's a job down here with your name on it." He knew I wanted to work around athletics, and I had that kind of background. And so Jordan, who did the whole rebrand, he's got as much of his fingerprint on this university as anybody next to me, President Williams, recruited me into Living Scriptures and out of Living Scriptures. So we've now worked together for almost 17, 18 years. Got a lot of history. I owe a lot to that guy.
Wow. And how long have you been at the university now?
So now it's 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And man, we've just seen phenomenal growth since I've been there.
It's wild. It's completely different. Everything is different.
Enrollment's gone up 46% since I've been there. We've doubled our campus footprint. We've added 111 academic programs, gone to Division I in athletics. So it's been phenomenal growth in my time. It's been fun to be a part of.
I can't wait to see us start being able to compete in athletics once all those restrictions are gone after this year, and get a chance to go to the dance and do all of those exciting things. I mean, it's so cool to have that here in our community.
There are universities smaller that have made deep runs in the NCAA tournament. They don't have the facilities. They don't have the research. So all it takes sometimes is one or two guys, on a basketball team. Football is a little bit more of a beast, a challenge. You're not going to be competing against Alabama anytime soon if you're at Utah Tech University.
But we could play them and get a big paycheck.
That's true. We could definitely win in the budget department with those guarantee games. But yeah, I mean, it's a challenge to grow. We had just gotten, I think, over the hub in Division II after transferring from junior college to a D2 program, and we decided to make a step again. And so, I hope the community's patient with us. I think we've got good people in place, and we're doing it right. And we just want to do something that can make our community proud.
The games are so fun, especially last year's. Both games against SUU, because then you really get to fill it up. Yeah. The football game last year was incredible, and then the basketball game with I took Breck to that one with me, and he left after, and he said that was maybe the most fun he's ever had at a live sporting event.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So it was such a fun experience.
It's fun when you can take ownership a little bit. I mean, you guys contribute, and so you're a part of our success.
Right.
I mean, when you win, the community wins, the supporters win, and so. And another thing at a smaller institution is there's just better access. I mean, Coach Peterson, Coach Jenkins, you see the players, and it's a little different than like I said, Ohio State or Michigan, where you're probably largely insulated from that. And so we hope to keep that magic while at the same time compete on a national stage.
Yeah, it's so fun to watch. So let's get into your influence formula. So tell me kind of the backstory of that, and I'm curious how, like, what came first? Did you have the idea and then the book came and then you wanted to be a speaker, or did you want to be a speaker because of your coaching? How did that all evolve for you?
Sure. Well, the book's unrelated, actually. It's a children's book that I'm still trying to write this book. It's about halfway done. And as somebody who's finished a book knows that there's a big difference between I'm writing a book and I wrote a book, right? It's a lot of work. And so kudos to you. My motivation in doing this is I see leadership done wrong on a daily basis, sometimes for myself, often from others. It's a difficult thing. We fall into patterns of manipulation, intimidation. Probably most common is we incentivize, and that works for a while, but then eventually the incentives got to get bigger and better. And I was just always curious at what creates lasting influence, and where kind of my light bulb moment came. It actually started with two brothers, the Manning brothers, not Peyton and Eli, but I had one, a guy named Damon that worked for me for 5 years while at Living Scriptures, and he was my top performer, and not just by a little bit. I mean, he crushed the competition. He'd make 2, 3, 5, 10 times as much money as his peers. And I'll never forget going to a manager training with him and about 40 of my other sales all-stars. And I just loved going to these because I love learning from the best. But we were talking about some sales strategies when Damon stood up to share everything he knew on the topic. And I looked around at my other top sales guys, expecting him to just soak it all up. And to my surprise, they were doing precisely the opposite. They were tuning him out. I'm thinking, why aren't you
Isn't that so interesting?
Listening to him? Yeah. He's making 5 times as much money as you. So I sat there perplexed trying to figure it out, and then it struck me. It wasn't because he was boring. I mean, heck, this guy, he could charm a TSA agent.
Yeah. Obviously dynamic.
Very dynamic. It wasn't because he was arrogant or off-putting. He was very liked within the company. And it wasn't even because these guys were jealous. It was a very bright, mature group. The reason they weren't listening to him is because they couldn't relate to him. The things he was teaching, they couldn't replicate. They couldn't duplicate. If I were to put into words the sentiment I was seeing that day, it would have been something to the effect of, that works for you, Damon, but that's you. You're Superman. What does that have to do with us?
Absolutely.
And so I learned an important truth in that moment, that all the credibility in the world is useless if those you're trying to influence don't see you as relatable. And it was about the same time that Damon's older brother, Drew, and you may have heard of this, but he was a personal trainer, and he was having a hard time relating to his customers and clients. They would say things like, Drew, I mean, this guy's just shredded, six-pack, kind of like me. And
I was going to use that same joke.
Why
Obviously,
you
we're dads.
Yeah, I got the dad bod going and the Mr. Clean haircut going. But they'd say, Drew, you just don't get it, man. This is easy for you. And they were right. Like, he never struggled to get to the gym. It was the best part of his day. He never felt tempted by greasy or fatty foods. And so he did something that maybe a lot of your listeners have heard about, but in a project called Fit to Fat to Fit, Drew intentionally gained and lost 75 pounds in a 6-month period.
Oh, yeah, I have heard of that.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, uh-huh.
And it was really interesting to listen to his feedback. He said, I knew that I'd get a big gut and a big butt. He said, what I didn't fully anticipate was the psychological toll it took. He said, for the first time in my life, I lacked ambition, drive, motivation, self-esteem. He said his journey back to fit was much more difficult than he anticipated. But his influence grew, man. I mean, he gained a massive social media following, wrote books on every talk show in America. And again, it was affirmed to me that all the credibility in the world is useless if those you're trying to influence don't see you as relatable. My wife, by the way, she's not very impressed. She says, you tell your buddy Drew to get pregnant 6 times. Like, that's a very good point. So I just noticed the importance of these 2 key characteristics, and I was just trying to define it. Why do we attach to some people? Why are we turned off by other people? And that's where I kind of cracked the code, I think.
Sales is very interesting in that way. So most of my background was also in sales and watching. And so for me, it was cell phones, right? And we were in Costco And so it's like every Costco is basically the same.
Yeah.
You know, their client base is the same. The layouts are the same. We're all selling the same phones. We had to dress the same way. And yet there's always disparity between success. And the first answer would always be like, oh, well, it's that location. Once someone really good gets at a location, then that location becomes the good one, right? But if we took that person out, then obviously that shifts. And it is so interesting to watch because everyone does. And I think that's an interesting metaphor for life because we all have the same opportunity in life. Even if we've got different obstacles that we have, at the end of the day, we all have an opportunity to make our lives what we want it to be. And for some people, it's easier than others. And I think so much of it starts in our mind. You know, and so I think having that sales background is always interesting because it allows us as adults to see how we compete when it's not sports. Like that's the competition for adults. You know, like that's if you're not playing sports anymore. I think that's why I liked it so much.
Yeah, it kind of fed that. Yeah. So how much of your, success, you've done some incredible things in business. What you're doing here is amazing. Would you attribute to the things you learned in that, like those sales jobs? Was that pretty foundational for you?
I think sports and sales really molded who I am, right? Because I learned in sports because I was never naturally good at any of them.
I played with you. Come on, you're being modest, man.
Not naturally at all. I had to work really hard. Like my friends could just be good. I had my two of my best friends growing up, Sean and Patrick. They were twins, and so they obviously had the advantage of always having someone to play with. So they were just, everything was so easy for them. And the group of friends I had were all very good. So I was on very good teams. We were always the best. Like we were like hitting corner kicks in soccer in first grade, like heading balls in, winning state championships, really, really competitive. But I was always like, I always knew I wasn't as good as they were. But so I learned the value of having a good team, because I would much rather be on a good team and participate and give the best that I can and win than be the best player on a team that lost all the time, you know? Yeah. So I learned that I love to win. And then I also learned how to lose because we had devastating losses. In fact, in one semifinal state soccer tournament, I played defense and the other team kicked it and I went to stop it. And so it ricocheted off my leg into the goal and our goalie went the other way. And so you have to deal with that as like a third grader, you know, like, man, I just cost our team the opportunity to win a state tournament. And so I think that really built that competitive fire in me. And then sales, to your point of like the school of hard knocks, it just forces you to learn how to work with people. Because that's sales. It doesn't matter if I'm selling a cell phone or pots or knives or religious scripture. The reason people will buy from you is because they like you.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't really matter what you're selling. It's all relationship based. And so I think once you become good at that and you're good with your words, then it's easier to be a leader. It's easier to be a coworker because everything at the end of the day is relationships.
I used to tell my sales guys that selling is 80% selling yourself and 20% selling your product.
Yeah.
Meaning you have to have a good product. That's got to stand up and hold, but it's less about who's selling it, or what you're selling. And it's more about who's selling it. It's like you said, it could be an idea.
Yeah.
It could be knives, it could be phones. But I think sometimes we're like, why aren't people getting this? This is such a good idea. It's like, well, are you relating to them? Or, anyway, yeah, good feedback, man. I think it doesn't matter how well-intended you are. It doesn't matter, how hard you even work. That was a hard pill to swallow. Like I had guys that just worked their butt off and you just rooted for them you just want them to find success. But it didn't always equate to productivity, to results,
Right. Because if you're doing it wrong, it doesn't matter how much you're doing it.
Yeah. And I see that a lot in sports where it's like, that's the hardest worker on the team. And I'm like, yeah, but he's the size of Rudy Rudiger. Like, this guy may be lazy, but when game time comes around, he's 6'8", 280, and that's, if I'm the coach, that's who's going to give me the most results, the greatest chance to win. And so that's a harsh truth. And I think today's day and age, we just want to coddle a little bit and reward people for effort. And it's hard not to, because effort's a notable attribute.
Well, it's interesting too, because part of the reason why little Rudy works so hard is because he knows he has to.
Yeah.
And part of the reason the 6'8", 240 guy doesn't is because he doesn't have to, So it's like you can't have the blessing of your size and physical stature and also get the work hard ethic because you don't have to. And just like Rudy, he has to work hard because he wasn't gifted that. So it's like it's doing what you have with your gifts. But so my next question is, why do you want to help people increase their influence?
I just see so much pain out there, man. I just, people trying to get their kids to give up bad habits, get their coworkers to follow policy and be a better team player. Or people that, like we're talking about, are just banging their head on the wall, trying to get results and they can't connect or inspire or succeed. And so, somebody that's, I don't think I'm the expert at influence. It'll be a lifelong pursuit, but I've learned some things that I know can help people and their families and their life and their careers. And that's what really motivated me.
Just making a difference in their lives.
Yep.
And so what is the formula for influence?
So I have found that to have lasting influence with others, they need to see within you a combination of both credibility and relatability. I'm going to say that again. To have lasting influence with others, they need to see within you a combination of credibility and relatability. So either one of those characteristics in isolation will yield very little influence.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you're insanely competent, but you're just a jerk.
Yeah.
You're an arrogant
jerk.
It's going to wear off. He's accomplished, but again, it's kind of like I was sharing, there's what I call a connection gap there. If people don't see you as relatable, there'll be a connection gap. Now, you could be incredibly relatable, incredibly likable. I think of like bum college roommates or old high school friends. They get you. You feel comfortable. You can drop your hair, whatever. But after a while, you don't see anything admirable, anything that you want to imitate, or, and it kind of just yuck, after a while. And I call that an admiration gap. So if you're struggling, if you, say you enjoy great camaraderie with your peers, your supervisor, even customers or clients, but find that whenever the stakes are high, when it's time to talk business, your words fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
You're probably suffering from an admiration gap.
Yeah.
And if you have great ideas, maybe transformational ideas for your organization, for your team, but you struggle to get buy-in, people to listen and follow your lead, you're probably struggling with a connection gap.
And so how do you help people with that? Like, what's your process for helping someone who maybe they do have good ideas and the merit of what they're saying is valuable, but just people aren't listening?
You have to start, Cody, and this is really hard for people in society, but with just some honesty, an accurate assessment of where you are. Without honesty, there's no progress, right? So if you were to walk into a doctor's office and they're trying to find where your issues are, and you're not, he's not doing a thorough, correct analysis. Like, how can he fix, your heart problem if you don't, address where it is? And so that's why I came up with this influence spectrum quiz. So if you go to my website, you can find out if you're a rocket scientist or a comedian, which are the symbols I use for extreme credibility or extreme relatability.
Okay, yeah.
And you can kind of see, I found that most people, depending just on their background, their values, their stage of life, or their career or discipline, predominantly rely on one of these characteristics or the other for their influence. So first, if we can define it, I'll ask people, there's a short version on the quiz, and there's a longer, more accurate assessment on the quiz where they can kind of see where their propensities and inclinations are, and then see where their shortcomings, where their gaps are.
And are you saying that the rocket scientist or the comedian, neither one is necessarily better than the other? It's just you're one of the two?
Exactly.
Okay. What one are you?
I'm a moderate comedian. So you can get one of 5 results. You can be extreme comedian, moderate comedian, balanced, a moderate scientist, or an extreme rocket scientist. And I should clarify, a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I got big time comedian, but I'm not like really that funny. And I'm like, you're right. You're not. But it's less about that. It's more about just how well do you read people? You know, your observational intelligence. Is there, you know, or are you kind of, you know, linear and don't really pick up on social cues, that kind of thing. So I'm a moderate comedian, but I don't end there, because I'm not a big fan of putting people in a box and saying, here's what you are and how you'll always be. I do that to just give people an insight into how they, you know, what their propensities are.
Yeah, how they operate.
But the beauty of the influence formula is it's like any multiplication formula. The greater the inputs, the greater the values, the greater the outcome.
Yeah.
So the influence formula would say credibility multiplied by relatability equals influence, equals your depth and breadth of influence. So you can always increase in credibility. You can always get more education, more experience, more skill, more expertise.
Yeah.
And you can always increase your skills as it comes to relating to others. These are things like your empathy, your warmth, your you know, shared experience, your open-mindedness, you know, are you diverse? Can you only talk to people that look, act, and think like you? Or can you relate to a wide array of people? And those are the things we learn knocking doors and selling cell phones, right?
Especially in different parts of the country, because you're going to sell differently in Florida than you might in California. You know, your conversations and certain things that you do might be different based on where you are.
Yeah, 100%. And this applies both interpersonally as well as publicly. So meaning, you know, over a cup of coffee, you're trying to, you know, win somebody your way of thinking, or even publicly, say you're running for political office. Like,
that's kind of what I was thinking of in politics.
Perceived?
You got to know that there are people running for those positions are consciously aware of these things, and what can I do to be more credible or more likable? Like Vivek Ramaswamy, he's rapped Eminem at the Iowa State Fair, probably because he's so intellectual. Like, let me show you I'm also just a regular person.
Yeah,
you know, like I can just rap to a song that we all know at an Iowa State Fair, even though I'm probably a genius.
Yep,
you know
exactly.
what I mean?
That's a publicist's role, right?
Yeah,
is they'll take these beautiful, say, actors, actresses, accomplished professional athletes that probably have private planes, butlers, you know, and then they get them on talk shows and say, go talk about your dog, you know, or share some story that's relatable to the American public, so they can connect with you. You know, I was fascinated by the 2012 presidential election. You know, I'd never heard a political candidate criticized for being too perfect. You know, Mitt Romney had succeeded in everything he'd done in business. He had a picturesque family, no skeletons in his closet. He even looked like a president. Plastic Mitt, they called him, right? But Barack Obama brilliantly portrayed him as an elitist, right? As out of touch with the people. And I just thought it was so interesting that a few elections prior, George W. Bush beat probably a more competent, more capable candidate in Al Gore, because he was seen as the kind of guy you could get a beer with. Yeah, right. And so it plays out publicly. And so if you're trying to grow a social media influence or whatever, you could take a look and see how am I being perceived, and do I need to improve in my bona fides, you know, my competencies, or do I just need to learn how to connect better?
Was it hard to build that quiz? Like, that seems like, wow, that's incredible you're able to build something like that.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It really was.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. And, you know, there's a lot of just cheesy quizzes out there, like, what Disney princess are you, right? And things. And I wanted this to be something that was legitimate, scientific, and as well as user-friendly, you know.
Yeah, how long does it take, the quiz?
So there's a 10-question version, which I'll usually do in the middle of my presentations, so people can get that real-life feedback. So that only takes not even 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The 30-question one's probably 7 to 9 minutes.
Have you heard of Vistage?
No.
So Vistage is a network of professional speakers. So Vistage groups exist all over the United States. So it's CEOs, like C-suite executives for companies, and they join these chairs. So it's like you've got all these different CEOs of all these different companies, and they have to meet once a month, every month for the year. So 12 meetings a year, and 8 of them have to have a guest speaker. And so if you can get into this network, it provides this incredible exposure and opportunity to share your message. And then what happens is that usually then a CEO would like see you talk and hear your formula and be like, you know what? I need you to come to my company and do this with me. Or I've got a buddy who's going through this thing at his company and I need to introduce you. And so
that's a hot little tip there,
yes,
my friend. That's cool.
So my business coach, Craig Andrews, who does EOS, he brought out a Vistage speaker to speak to a group of professionals here in St. George. His name is Michael Alasso, and he's from the Northeast, and he was amazing, like just captivating. He had a history in drama, and so he's just super.
So he was strong on the performance side.
Like over the top strong, and just not afraid to be authentically him in any moment.
Wow.
You know, sing, dance, be quirky. Like he was just amazing. And so this was the beginning of the year, so I went up to him and said, you know, I'd love to learn more about what you do and how you do this. And he offers coaching. And so I ended up hiring him for his services. So I did 3 months, 2 times a week with him. So he actually helped me do my speech for Utah Tech.
Oh, cool.
I wouldn't have been able, I know I couldn't have done as good as I did without him. He helped me build out the entire framework. And then what's funny is I was like, yeah, I think I did great. I was like, let's watch it. And he's like, so what do you see? I was like, yeah, it looks good. He's like, no, it doesn't look good. He's like, look at you pacing back and forth. Like your shoes are distracting. You're not changing your voice. Like you should have paused right here. And it was so great because I did feel like I did great. But then watching it back with him and having him point out all these things, it was like, oh, wow, there's so much opportunity for growth. And so anyways, he had started his professional career through Vistage. So he does 111 Vistages a year. And he said, basically every talk I've ever done in some way ties back to Vistage.
Really?
Like from a referral. And he's doing just 111 Vistages alone. And I mean, Michael isn't inexpensive. So, I mean, he's doing really well. And so I have my first Vistage talk. So I went through that course with him. And then he was like, you know, if I feel like you're worth it, I'll give you a referral. So your first 3 you have to do for free. And then after that, if they feel like you were good enough and you provided value, then you get into the network and then you get compensated for them all. So
wow, what a cool idea. And man, how great is it that you would be willing to accept a coach and that honest feedback? I think, you know, we talk about credibility. I wonder how often people, I don't know, have you ever... I counsel people to go to somebody that, you know, a peer, a supervisor, somebody they trust, and just say, man, can you give me some honest feedback?
Yeah.
Like, where are my blind spots? Where do I stink? And I think most people rather just live blissfully ignorant. I mean, a life of mediocrity than to get some real honest feedback.
Yeah, it's way easier
about their standing in the world.
Well, Michael's so good at it, and he'd say, you know, look, Cody, you're real handsome. He was like, and so maybe you look like I would cast you as like the cool kid, but you'd probably cast you as the nerd, you know? Like,
he said that.
He's like, you got kind of a nerdy voice. And so, you know, like that's like, if I was casting you in a cartoon, you'd be playing the nerd. You wouldn't be playing the cool kid. And then he's like, but you do kind of look like the cool kid. In fact, you kind of look like a frat boy. He was like, so you've got to be really careful to not be like a stupid jock. He's like, you've got to understand when people look at you, they may project that on you. And so how are you going to counteract that? And so he was so willing to just like tell it to you, you know? And then like I would say something or I would talk and he would just instantly give me feedback. Like you said, and you said this and you paused and you didn't really have a purpose and you didn't get excited. Your voice never changed. And it was unbelievable. I wish I could have done more because 6 times wasn't really very much, but it did make a huge impact in my progress to be in this space that you are, you know?
Where I really improved a lot in this space, and I've got a long ways to go. I'm going to get his contact information.
Oh yeah, you'd love it. He's amazing.
Was when the pandemic hit, we had to convert all of our classes at Utah Tech and everybody across the country to virtual. And that was the first time I really recorded myself and watched back. And I was like, oh man, like, ooh, like that's brutal, you know? And so I improved a ton, just simply watching myself. But to have somebody with his experience from a standpoint of character acting
Yeah.
and performing and whatnot would just take it up a whole.
Well, and he
another
even
level.
said, like, you should go join an improv club. Like, you need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Let's do it, Cody.
You know,
Let's do
because
it.
that's where you're going to improve. And he's like, and you need to understand stage awareness. He was like, watching you, you don't understand stage awareness at all. And then I was like, I have at the end, like, my last thing is like, your next moment starts now. And I meant to like pause and have it be powerful. And in my mind, I paused for like a minute, you know, and I just stood there in my power stance. And then watching it back, I paused for like all of 4 seconds, maybe, you know, but you just you can't see it in your head the way that it looks when you watch it back. And I would have never taken away the cues for improvement had Michael not existed. I would have just watched it and been like, oh yeah, I did great. Like, look at me. I'm all over the stage. I'm talking to everyone. You know, I don't know enough to know that it wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. I kind of nerdy about my last presentation. I was in Branson, Missouri, and seemed like kind of a fun place. I'd never been there. Got some good golf out there. And my parents are retired. They'd never heard me speak. And so like, can we come with you? I was like, sure. And, but it was cool because it was the first time I had somebody I trusted enough to really tear me down.
Right.
And so I think I would love to have that every time I get in front of a group. That honest feedback. It's like what we were talking about at the beginning of the interview with sports and cells, and it's, man, we all
just like athletes go watch their tape. You know what I mean?
Way to go. Yep.
It's funny because I practiced my speech for the Utah Tech Talk in front of my wife and kids a bunch of times. And then after I went to my wife, I was like, how'd I do? You know, she's like, you did great. It's not at all what you practiced. But she was like, it was, and I didn't, and even I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, that was like totally not what you did for us. And because in my mind, I thought it was the same, you know? But, and then this most recent one I did in Columbus, I don't know what happened. I loved it. I did really good. I got awesome feedback. But I cannot remember it at all.
Really?
I have no recollection of it. I got up on the stage. I felt like it was great. I got off. I have no memory of it. It's like I just channeled or something. I don't know what, but I like kind of blacked out. I don't have any memory of it whatsoever.
Wow. I don't think people fully appreciate, you know, we can charge some pretty good fees for this. And sometimes people are like, that for an hour?
Yeah.
And this might surprise you, but I get sick to my stomach for like a week leading up to a presentation. I'm completely preoccupied.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it takes all my focus and energy, not to mention all the research and the preparation and obviously the experience. I mean, people are paying for your experience. And so, I mean, sometimes I don't know if we charge enough, but yeah, afterwards you're just exhausted. Like you're just, like you say, blacked out, like tired. And, typically people will come up and want to interact with you. They see this outgoing, engaging person up there on stage and you're like, well, no, I'm tired. I'm tired. I need to go find a dark hole, some ice cream, you know, something to re-energize. So that doesn't surprise me that you don't recollect a lot.
None of it. It's so interesting. And so that night before, I was really, really nervous. I was more nervous for this one than the Utah Tech one, but the audience was smaller. So I don't know why that was. Maybe because I had flown to Columbus and so it felt bigger, maybe, you know?
They probably paid you more than we did.
And I could not sleep because I just kept running the talk through my head, right? Like at nauseum. And then I was thinking of like really clever and good things. And so then I was like, oh, that's good. I'll use that. And I just couldn't. So at 4:00 in the morning, I hadn't slept yet. I got up and I was like, I got to get it out of my head because like, if I don't get it out, then I'm never going to go to sleep. So at 4:00 in the morning, I get up, I go to the desk and I just got my laptop out and I typed everything that I was thinking, not even in any purposeful way or of like, this will be my notes for tomorrow. Cause I don't use notes when I'm talking, but in a, like, I got to get it out of my mind and get it somewhere. So my mind knows it no longer has to carry the burden of this information. And so I laid back down at like 5 and I had to be up at like 7. I maybe only slept an hour or two max that night. And it was like, I was just so relieved and it was over. It was like, oh, thank God.
So you're up in the hotel room in the middle of the night just typing out. That's crazy. This is what everybody prepares differently, but I try to rehearse, especially if I'm trying something new, and I completely write it out, and then I try to get it so it's not looking and feeling memorized.
Yeah.
But the day before, I try to do very little like rehearsing. Like I'll do whatever I can to distract me. And so
Interesting.
I'm the world's biggest Seinfeld fan.
I love Seinfeld.
So I'll throw on a Seinfeld episode literally like right up to like you're on. Because it just relaxes me. It loosens me up.
Get your mind
and it
off of
reminds
it.
me that I'm just here to have a good time. And I'm glad that I put in the work and I've got all that kind of stored. And I just hope that it comes back out.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, the day of, I try to get my mind off it as much as I can.
I like that idea. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because I love it. So none of this is meant to say it's a negative because I love it and I want to pursue it and I really enjoy being on the stage and it's interesting too because as I'm sharing my message, which is mine, but then it's like you see other speakers you love and it's like so you don't want to be them, you want to be you. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, oh, but this person did this and it was so good. And so I think for me, I'm still figuring out like how to be myself the best. So there was this one speaker at that event her name was Jeanette, and she was so good. Like now when I watch speakers, I watch it kind of like how I watch sports, like where I used to just listen, and if the message was cool, I liked it.
Now you won't get anything out of a talk ever again.
But now I'm watching them like performing,
right.
And so I'm so more cued in on what they're doing and how they open and how they close and when they move and when they don't, when their voice changes, when they use their hands. And this gal, Jeanette, was amazing. And I was like, okay, she is good. Like she has put in the practice. And so I went up and talked to her after. So she told me about this. It's called Heroic Public Speaking.
Yeah.
Core.
Michael Port. Yep. Michael and Amy Port.
You know them? Did you do this?
I'm thinking about it. We ought to go out there together.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. So she, Jeanette referred me. So I had a call with Amy this morning.
Oh, cool.
And so she gave me some dates. And so there's a weekend in January, but yeah, it'd be awesome to do it together.
I've always wanted to. So I get help on the business side from a different service, but they actually recommend that Heroic Public Speaking's the best on the actual performance side, and they're trained actors as well, and so yeah, they're really good, and they're all about finding that authentic you. And it's like you say, you're trying to adapt and incorporate some of these other things you see and like, but also stay true to yourself. Right. I think they're really good at helping you define you, which is really hard to do. They say you can't.
Isn't that weird?
Tell the packaging from inside the jar. You know, we're so close to it, and even like our spouses and families are probably too close to it.
Yeah.
But when you're out on a stage in front of a bunch of strangers, what are your unique strengths? Like, where are you the strongest? Where are you the weakest? Where do you seem to come from a place of authenticity? And I think they help with that. I think it's important that you're trying to always stretch and grow, like your coach has said, because that's how and if you are nervous, that means you're doing it right. That means you're in an uncomfortable place. Nothing worse than somebody just locking into one thing and then just, acting like they got it all figured out and just riding that for 10 years. If you ever get to where you're not nervous before you step on a stage or in a podcast like this, I think you don't care enough personally.
Yeah, for sure.
But you also, you need to be you. You can't try to fully imitate other people.
I like prepping for the Utah Tech Talk. I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Like, I'm literally just sharing my own thoughts. I'm not going recite. It's not like I have a book report and I was supposed to go decipher this book and come back and tell you about it. And there's certain things you're looking for out of me. It's like the audience doesn't even know what I'm going to say because it's just my information. So I almost like can't mess it up other than like if I just ran out of things to say, and that's never going to happen. Yeah. So it's this really interesting dynamic, but that is so cool that you've heard of them, because that's just like what a great synergy that is, and something it'd be way cool to do together.
100%, man. I just been wanting to do it for a while and just haven't had, Anyway, so to have somebody to say, dude, let's go do it together. I have a traveling partner. I'm all in. So, one other tip before, and I think this applies to a lot of things, a big interview, big sales call, big presentation. If you're starting to feel really nervous and get that imposter syndrome, it's largely because you're focused on you and how you're going to look and come across. One of the things that really helps me is is I just have to, I lock in and remember I'm out here to serve. Like, this is about them. And as soon as I, start saying, hey, I want to help people, I want to lift people, and stop worrying about my brand or exposure, or how I do and look, it takes a lot of that pressure off. And you also have to know that you're not going to please everybody. Like some people like totally love the Cody in style, and other people like, that's not for me, but you can't worry about them. It's the same with all business, right? Some people simply don't like going to Chipotle, right? Chipotle doesn't sit there and get insecure and think, oh, whatever.
We better change our menu.
Yeah, because they know that they've got people that do love what they do, and that's who you're there to serve. So don't focus on the critics. Focus on those that you can serve. And I found that's helped me a lot.
That's a great message, because I think there are times, because in order to have the opportunities to have growth and be found in the space we're trying to operate, you've got to be out there, right? And so you put something out and you might think like, oh, like I don't look very good in this one. But it's like, who gives a shit? Because if the message resonates with someone, that's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're not doing it so they like you. You're doing it so you can help them. And so I think changing that mindset really makes a difference. And it's funny, so when I spoke in Columbus, they made some clips of it. They're really good. And I posted them, and someone on YouTube like just responded like, I bet you're talking to no one. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was funny. But then a friend of mine called me and he goes, hey, I got a question for you. I said, what's up? He goes, I love what you're doing. I think it's great. But were you just on a stage by yourself, not talking to anyone? And I was like, how interesting. You're the second person to say it. And I was talking to people, but I would also gladly just go talk on a stage with no one, just so I could have clips of it, you know? Yeah. But how funny that that's what it looked like. But you can't allow that fear of someone thinking like, oh, he's not real. He's just talking to a room empty of people, because that's not what it's about. But I did find it funny that two people thought, and that was a good friend of mine, thought I was totally just faking it,
Wow. If you're ever going to do something great, if you're ever going to put yourself out there, try to serve, I mean, you're always going to have critics. And so you just have to embrace that. And it's funny you say that. I built my website during the pandemic, and I was looking for, I needed to make a demo reel. Right?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And I had spoken in front of, hundreds of people, big audiences.
Right.
So it wasn't inauthentic, but there just weren't any audiences for a year and a half. Like it was social distancing, like you had to get away. And so, I stepped on an empty stage, but I didn't feel like that was dishonest at all, because I've spoken to tons.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If you've got a message and you've got to get clips of it, because the thing is, you can't have the camera person in particular areas if it is a live talk. So if you're really trying to make something good, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I just thought it was funny that two people really did think it, because I didn't.
It was legit.
Yeah. Or even that someone I don't even know on YouTube felt it necessary to be like, to even say that. It's like that. Wow, I just feel bad for them. Like, oh man, whatever that person's going through, I hope I can help you in some way, because you're struggling if you're worried about if I have people I'm talking to or not,
Taking the time to just pick other people apart.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It's an interesting thing. But so, are there any other pieces that you want to share? Because I want to make sure we get enough time to talk about your influence formula. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on yet that you feel like, man, we'd be remiss if we didn't share this with the audience?
The biggest thing I think that can be helpful to your listeners or anybody out there is just an awareness of these gaps, the connection gap. And I thought it might be helpful to share a couple examples, like, or of the admiration gap. So like I had a buddy that was so likable, and I mean, a great morale guy. He'd walk in a room, the place would light up. I mean, he got along with everybody, kind of guy that you just wanted on your team.
Yeah.
But I noticed whenever promotion time came around, I used to have to pass on him because his sales performance wasn't quite up to par. And I remember after one of these Passovers, he came up to me and he's like, bro, I thought we were friends. And he mistakenly equated popularity or likability with influence. And while it's a part of it, it's not the complete picture. And I had to share with him the harsh truth that while he was liked within the company, even loved, because the sales performance wasn't up to par, he wasn't going to be admired or respected. And there's a ton of glaring examples out there of the admiration gap. The 400-pound person that can't walk up the stairs without breathing that has the secret to, lasting health and, some MLM or whatever,
right, yeah.
or the person that knows the next financial secret, and yet they live in a crappy 1-bedroom and their car's falling apart and whatever. So they just don't have that credibility. And I think where my biggest passion lies is helping people with that connection gap, because
that was gonna be my next question. What's a real life example of a connection gap?
So, I mean, we shared a few there with the Manning brothers, but my, kind of funny one, just the other day with my wife, I married her 16 years ago because we have so much in common, but there's one thing that we don't have in common. That's in the foods that we eat. So I'm not making this up. My wife has never in her life eaten a hot dog, a hamburger, a piece of bacon. I know it's like un-American, right? I don't think she should be allowed to vote. Whenever we go to restaurants, I swear she's looking at the menu trying to pick like the least desirable thing on the menu. I mean, the servers
Because she just
surprised.
eats super healthy, was why?
So healthy. I, on the other hand, like hit Five Guys burgers and fries like for breakfast, right? So I come home and I'm like, honey, have you ever tried the peanut butter mood smoothie from Jamba Juice? My buddy Cody recommended it. Different Cody said it's amazing, and she like slugged me in the arm. She's like, are you serious? You never listened to me. I've recommended the peanut butter mood smoothie to you hundreds of times. Cody recommends it, and you try it.
I love that.
And I'm like thinking, no, I don't remember. She's like, I think I recommended it to you last week. So I'm just sitting there. This is such a classic example.
Yeah.
I listen to her on most stuff. When it comes to food,
click
out.
If she thinks it's good, you think it's gross.
I go the opposite direction.
That's so funny.
Entirely. And so, I mean, you see it in generations too. It's very common that sometimes people think because they have influence in one context, like maybe a boss at work, that they automatically have influence in another context, like maybe at home with a teenager, and it's like those are completely different worlds.
Yeah, you got to earn it in all the different areas that you exist.
Exactly,
you don't get to carry it with you. And
it's smart too to know you can borrow credibility. So we mentioned I'm a fundraiser. I primarily hang out with millionaires, C-level suite type of people. And I've never sold a business for millions, just for the record, in case your listeners are wondering. But a lot of times what I'll do is legwork. And then when it's time to make an ask, I'll bring President Williams or our athletic director, even better, like a fellow donor or, somebody that's at a similar level to kind of come in and make that ask. So if you're struggling sometimes to resonate with people, you can ask yourself, like, who would this message come better from? Who would have more credibility here?
I love that.
Or be able to relate?
So that's a way that you could bring in credibility to what you're trying to accomplish when you don't have it yet yourself.
100%. You see it all the time, right? When we try to get customer reviews to do our selling, that third person selling, instead of making a claim ourselves, letting somebody that looks, acts, thinks like them also endorse it.
Well, yeah, we had, his name's Nick Hutchings. He's an author and he has a podcast too. And he's been able to interview amazing people like Evan Carmichael and Grant Cardone and Patrick Bet-David. Like he just figured it out, but now it's like, I got that. Okay. So now I have Nick. So now I can try and use Nick's credibility to go to
leverage it, baby.
A Patrick Bet-David and be like, oh, I was talking to Nick and he said you guys had a great podcast together, thought we'd be a good fit. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, now I have more of it. It'd be just a hard no if I reached out just, hey, I'm Cody and I'd like you to be in my podcast. But now I can use Nick's credibility to try and leverage an opportunity for myself.
Yeah, that's exactly the plan, man. That's what I'm trying to get people to help see and do. So sorry, I can't add more credibility to your thing. You could interview anybody you want to, Cody, in Kanab, Utah, man. I mean, I'm somebody, right?
I'm a fan of Kanab. I enjoy Kanab quite a bit. We got a bunch of properties out there that we're working with.
Really? Cool. Yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah, Kanab's awesome. Okay, so then a couple questions for you before we wrap it up. But you've read the book Winning the Moment, right?
I have, yep.
Biggest takeaway, favorite part, something that was memorable, anything that stuck out for you?
I just, my biggest thing is I just love how good of a writer you are. I think you just, it feels like free flowing, conversational. It just feels like I think it was Stephen Covey that said, if you write a book for you, that'll likely be a dud. But if you write it for the audience, he goes, that'll be a successful book.
Yeah.
I can tell that you've done that there's true nuggets of wisdom that help people, and just the focus on moments, man. I think we measure, our time moving forward through a calendar.
Yeah.
But we measure backwards through moments, right? We can't remember the month, week, date.
Yeah. What day did this
typically.
happen? Yeah, you're not going to remember that.
But life's just made up of moments, and some people can get, if they're following what you're teaching, and they're focusing on just winning the moment, they can get as much out of a week as some people will out of a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And so I'm a big believer that moments make up life, and we just need to not go into coast mode, into autopilot, and look back and be like, oh, holy cow.
And that's where so many of us live, is on that subconscious autopilot where we're not even actively participating in our own lives.
Why is that?
I don't know. Because it's just survival.
Yeah.
It's just the brain's way of being like, hey, if we just kind of like you talked about, like being mediocre, that's our brain's way of being like, hey, well, if we don't try, we can't fail, and you can't get hurt, and we'll just be nice and smooth, and we'll make it to the finish line. But the goal is not to finish. The goal is to live.
Yeah.
I
love that. And I think we need to live more. We need to talk more about courage and being willing to live on the frontier a little bit more. I think we value safety way too much in society, and just comfort zone. And anyway, like you said, that's huge.
Well, a friend of mine, before we started today, shout out to Casey. He's an avid listener. If you're listening, Casey, thank you. He sent me a clip of Giannis when they lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. And someone was like, is this season a failure? And he was like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, no, this one game doesn't mean I'm a failure, or organization's a failure. Like, it's just we failed today, but that's not who we are now. Just like if we won, we wouldn't be winners forever because there's another series, And so I think it's just being focused on those moments. And I think too often in life, we allow those milestones to be like how we provide, like how we feel about ourselves, like this job promotion or this pay raise or this marriage or whatever this thing is. And we just are waiting for those moments to happen versus actually enjoying all the things leading up to it.
Yeah.
And that, like, for me, I always use the example of when I trained for the St. George Marathon. I'd always wanted to run a marathon. I'd done a bunch of halves, but I had never done a full at that point. And I was so excited to do it. And then when it was over, it was so deflating because I never took the moment to appreciate that. Like, I became a runner through that process because I ran every day, and that's something I'd never done in my life up to that point. And I really trained and I worked hard, but all I was worried about was just like, what time am I going to finish? And so when it was over, it was very deflating because it was like, oh, like the thing I'd been waiting for 6 months is now over, and that's it.
Wow. I was listening to a lady named Allison Levine. I'm not sure how she pronounces her last name. She led the first all-female American expedition to summit Mount Everest. If you've ever heard anybody tell their story on the side of that mountain, it is mesmerizing. I mean, they're literally gambling with their lives.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, her first attempt, they got within eyesight of the summit. And because a storm was coming in, they had to turn around and go back. Oh, wow. And what people don't realize is, like, if it's within eyesight, like it's a football field away, like you sprint up there, you hit it.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't work that way. They take a step, they breathe for 10 seconds, take another step. I mean, anything over, I don't know if it's 18,000 feet or something, like your body is atrophying. It's literally dying. Yeah. It's just not a healthy place anyway. So to save the whole expedition, she turned around. She thought that's the closest she would ever get to summit Everest. But inspired later by a friend that had passed away, who always was encouraging her to go do it. They wanted to go honor her, and she did it. She got to the top, and she's standing up there, and she goes, "So what?" I'm like, what? So what? I mean, you're the highest point on the planet Earth, something very few people have ever done. And she said, "So what?" She goes, "It's just a pile of ice and rocks." And then it just baffled me that she said, we focus far too much on the goal and not nearly enough, on the effort and the things we learn. She said achievements in and of herself are pretty worthless, but the value is in the things you learn along the way. And I've always thought a lot about that. What is so Giannis, for example, what do you do the day after winning the NBA championship or winning the Super Bowl? I mean, it's just another day. You grab a bowl of cereal. What do you do?
A perfect example is so I'm a huge Nuggets fan, and people like to give Jokic shit because he doesn't play the role that the NBA would like him to play. And so someone asked him, "How has your life changed since you became an NBA champion?" And he goes, "It's the exact same as it was before." Because your life doesn't change. Like, he went back to Sombor and he raced his horses, and people have been giving him a hard time. Like, this guy doesn't even care about basketball. Look at this answer. It's like, no, he's just being real. You want them to say oh, it's incredible, it's this lifelong thing, but realistically, yes, he wanted it, they did it, and the next day he was just a father and a husband. You know what I mean?
That's why I love him, man. Joker's the man.
Oh, I love it.
So John Stockton was asked, he's one of the greats that never won an NBA championship, and I don't know how many. I mean, he's all-time assists, steals leader. I don't know how many consecutive All-Star games. Of course,
his stats are wild.
It's wild. I mean, one of the best. And so, closely around his retirement, somebody asked him how it felt to be one of the best that never got a ring, and he said, I suppose there's probably a lot of people, whether they're a bench player, role player, whatever, have a ring. Yet we get great satisfaction out of the effort that we put in. And so he was essentially saying, I get satisfaction out of showing up every day, going to practice, doing what I should. And if a ring's a byproduct of that, great. If not, it's just metal. Of
course, he'd love to have a championship, but that isn't why he did it every day. He did it because he loved it.
Yeah.
And that ring doesn't discredit any of his success in any way.
Right. Probably, like I said, probably had a way more successful career than a lot of people that did get a ring by my estimation.
Oh, of course. So. Yeah. I mean, Bones Highland just got a ring from the Nuggets. He wasn't even on the team, Yeah. So I'd much rather have John Stockton's career than Bones Highland, even though Bones has got a ring.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question, what's the biggest win in your life?
So as an avid listener of your podcast, and you're going to ask that. So I was talking to my wife. I said, what do you think I should say, Nikki? What do you think is the biggest win in my life? And she said, I think that's pretty obvious. I said, you? She's like, yeah. The truth is, when people meet my wife, they do say, man, I can tell you're really good at sales, because she is way above you. My of all the things I do, my wife and my kids definitely are, my treasures.
Yeah.
And, but that can typically be kind of a cliche answer. And so I think, we talked about the guts, the courage it takes to put yourself out there. And, there's not a big community of public speakers out here. It's not like people that we can rely on.
Right.
It was.
You're the only other one I know who's pursuing it.
Yeah. I'm the only nut job, right? Yeah. The only person crazy enough to go out on a stage and to claim to have something of value or expertise to offer. And so it took a lot of courage to do it. I started this, I was in quarantine. I didn't have COVID. I thought I did. And this was for the first week.
Yeah.
That everybody was just like, what is this? And
and fear.
And I was just quarantined, and I had never slowed down enough to actually, it's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I started building out a website and a message, and then, last week I got paid my highest fee, my goal fee.
That's amazing.
And we were in an awesome convention center. It was highly produced, and I study happiness a lot. And they say these studies say a lot of people think it's wealth, it's prestige, it's power. But they say most people are ultimately the happiest when they're using their unique skills or abilities to carry out something that's meaningful to them, a cause or a purpose. And so it's kind of fun to be on stage, but afterwards, I was talking to a guy And he goes, man, I was taking vigorous notes. He goes, and this guy's a CEO of a big company. And he said, I was in a meeting just last week. He goes, I wish I would have had this last week. He goes, and that's so satisfying to me.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody says, hey, good job, or that joke was funny, or whatever. But when they're actually learning stuff, when I actually am contributing, that's been really fulfilling to me. And so building this, I've always wanted to build a successful business. I've had a few train wrecks. This thing seems to have a lot of momentum, and I feel like it's something that I'm good at, something that I can always get better at. But I'm getting that validation. You can always think like, oh, this is. I think people are going to like this and buy this or want this.
Right.
But when people are doing it and saying, hey, man, you're worth more than what you're charging, that's telling something. And so I feel like I'm onto something, and it's been a massive win in my life.
It's cool too, because speaking's kind of like golf, where it's all on you.
Yeah.
You're either, if they're good, it's because of you, and if you're bad, it's also because of you. Like
you're the product.
You get to wear all the success and also burden with all the struggles. And so I think it is such a rewarding thing. And even in writing the book, it's like, I don't know how many copies I'm going to sell or what it's going to happen from it. But when you get a message here or there of an impact you've made in someone's life, it's like, well, that in itself was worth the whole thing, knowing you can make a difference in someone's life. So then the opposite of that is what would you say your biggest loss is so far?
Oh man, I've had some tough moments. I talked about the children's book I published. I mean, we bootstrapped that thing, and we'd borrowed some money from some family to try to make it go, and it was successful. We just didn't know anything about. I mean, from a product standpoint, people liked it and whatnot. Yeah. We sold a lot through Costco and BYU Bookstore, Deseret Book, those things. But I remember just looking at the debt and the weight. And we had a bill to pay. I remember trying to transfer money from one credit card to like pay off another debt.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you couldn't do that. And I remember getting shut down like lightning fast by American Express, and being in the bottom of my basement talking to them, and they're telling me why this is fraudulent. And I'm like, I had no clue what I was doing. And I had never failed in anything in my life. And I remember just sitting there on this green suede couch in my basement up in Lehigh, Utah, just thinking, we've got to just end this. This has been a fun experiment. My wife's been so supportive and nice to play along, but I've got to go back and knock doors and dig my way out of this thing. And it took me about 1.5 2 years to dig out of that mess. And so that was a loss. That was a low point. I've never done anything that really violated my integrity, or where I just really felt like, gosh, that's not me. I'm a loser. I've always been able to keep that intact. But I guess being that was fraudulent, that maybe I crossed into that
but unbeknownst
realm.
to you.
Yeah, and just happened to say I failed was a hard pill to swallow.
I appreciate your vulnerability in that answer. That's like when I ask the question, I'm looking for an answer like that. It's hard for people to answer that question, because you're trying to decide like, well, what's a story I can tell that's not great, but still paints me in a good light. No one wants to be truly vulnerable and pull back the curtain and be like, well, actually, this was really shitty and I failed. It's a hard thing to share. But the reason I like to ask the question, and I want more answers like yours, and hopefully you'll motivate people to take that same opportunity to be vulnerable, is that someone who sees Lance, the successful fundraiser, the successful speaker, they need to know that to get to that level, you got to go through trials and tribulations, right? Like you don't get to have this influence formula without that terrible memory on that suede couch in the basement of Lehigh. Like that is who makes who Lance is today. And there's someone right now who's going through that same thing. And when you're in it, it feels like you're never going to get out of it. And so I like to give people the opportunity to share that. So if someone is listening to this and they're sitting on their own green suede couch in their basement, they can have that sense of comfort and knowing like, okay, I can get out of this. Like this failure doesn't mean I am a failure. It's just a moment where I failed.
Well, And that's probably why you don't get very direct answers because looking back on those failures, we're grateful for them, right?
That's almost always the case. With enough time, every failure becomes a positive, and you'd almost always never change it because it's paramount to who you are in the present.
It's led to here.
Right.
It's led to here. And I think, again, like you said in your book, and you put it more eloquently than I can, but when you're truly living, you're risking. You're setting yourself up for failure, and that's far more. You're going to create more moments in your life if you're willing to do that than if you're just always playing it safe.
Yeah, and that's why it's hard. It's hard, and I'm a conservative by nature, so it's difficult for me naturally to take risks.
Do you have an accounting background? Is that right?
It's a hard thing for me to do. But then, okay, so the last question I have for you is, how do you define success?
I think I kind of mentioned it with I think as long as you're living in accordance to your ideals, not societal expectations or their definitions of success, but if you set out a goal, a well thought out plan that's and you're proactive, not reactive. You're living according to principle. And values, things that are in alignment, and you're doing that, at a high level and in a way that you can be proud of, and that will inspire those around you and help lift society and your community. That to me looks like success. Oftentimes, money, acknowledgement, or those are byproducts of when people are doing that, but not always. Yeah, not always. I think of my mother and father-in-law that have been lifelong high school teachers. My father-in-law just retired after, I think, 38 years as a high school administrator. He was recently the athletic director at Alta High School, and I can't go anywhere in his community without people being like, Coach Brown, they love that guy. Right. And you're never going to get filthy rich teaching high schoolers how to drive.
You can
math.
Absolutely be successful.
And, but it was something he set out to do and did it well. And it influenced a lot of people.
Did you say father-in-law?
Father-in-law, yeah.
So yes, you said Coach Brown. So
I realized that in Kanab, a lot of people get into incest and whatnot. No, I did not meet her at a family reunion. Just sheer coincidence. So we have two Grandma and Grandpa Browns.
That is so interesting.
We called Nikki Brown or Nikki Brown Squared. She didn't have to change her name on her license.
Yeah, how
nothing.
Funny.
We actually have three Aunt Megans. Two are currently Browns. One was formerly Brown. So it kind of gets confusing. But no, we didn't meet at a family reunion.
I was thinking, because you said father-in-law, Coach Brown. I was like, wait a minute, how interesting. Well, that's a great story. I think that's an awesome perspective too, and that's really what this podcast is for, is wherever you find yourself, whatever vertical you want to be in, you can always find success because you get to define it for yourself. No one else gets to define that for you.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Lance, for being here. If they liked your message, or they want to hire you to be a speaker, or they just want to get more, they maybe want the formula, what's the best way for people to connect with you? LanceWBrown.com.
So easy enough, lancewbrown.com. They can go and I advise taking the Influence Spectrum quiz.
I'm going to.
Might be insightful. I'll be curious what you are, Cody. I can usually kind of peg people, but sometimes you never know. And and they can sign up for my newsletter and get content there. And
are you on social? Do you have like an Instagram for it?
No, I'm not the best at social.
Okay,
it's like an email newsletter. So I'm old school, but I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. But
okay,
like an old dad would be. So.
Okay, well, I'll put all of that in the show notes, so that way if you're listening to this and you want to do it, you can connect to it super easy. But I loved it. We're like at an hour and a half. We could have kept going.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Edit this down, baby.
Right? Can you believe it? That just, we could have kept going too. Easy, no problem.
Yeah, it's always awesome visiting with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.